So I'm glad to be able to join you guys on Tom the Bomb. And it's just very interesting. When I went and briefly reviewed Joel Embiid's injury history, it's interesting. And I think we always know that hindsight is 2020. Um, Embiid was drafted third overall in the 2014 NBA draft. The issue is before the draft even happened in June of 2014, he had to undergo a repair for a bone fracture in his right foot. So that was pre-draft. And the bottom line is he missed the entire 2014-15 season. Then approximately 1 year later, almost to the date, June 13th of 2015, he re-broke that same bone in his right foot, requiring another surgery. The consequence of that was he missed the entire 2015-2016 season. So he missed the first 2 seasons entirely of his rookie career due to these repeated right foot injuries. Um, in the 2016-17 season, in January, he suffered a left knee injury in his 30th NBA game. So he had been drafted for 2 years. This is his 30th NBA game. He plays a week later in a loss to the Rockets. And then in early March, he's determined to have a significant left knee meniscus injury. So basically, he missed the remaining entirety of his 2016 rookie season after playing only 31 games. Okay, are you starting to hear warning, Real Robinson?
Warning room, I like that. Warning room,
March
Robinson.
28th of 2018, he collided with a teammate, Markel Fultz, and had a fracture, very serious, of his left orbit and went into the concussion protocol. He missed 6 games of the season after that and the first 2 games of the 2018 playoffs. Okay for about 2 years. And then in January of 2020, he had a very gruesome finger injury in a win over the Thunder. He missed the next 6 games because that required surgery. And again, injuries, players run into each other. They're big, they're very physical. It's hard to control body mass velocity when you're moving fast. But these kinds of injuries happened, and he missed the next 9 games. May of 2021, he had a fall in game 4 of the Eastern Conference playoffs, and literally resulted in a partially torn right meniscus. Okay, so we had a left knee injury. Now we've got a right knee injury. He missed 1 game. In November of 2021, he had to go into COVID protocol. Nobody's fault about that. A lot of people were affected very significantly, and apparently he was too, by COVID. Then we get to April 20th of 2022. He tears a ligament in game 3 of the Eastern Conference playoffs. He missed the first 2 games of the Eastern Conference semifinals, and then he gets an elbow thrown at him in game 6, and that results in another right orbital fracture and a mild concussion this time. Okay, so more injuries, but he played. He was named MVP of the 2022-23 season in May 2023. So he really had a great year in the 2022 to 2023 season, but it was kind of one of the few years that was not plagued by injuries that were significant. January 30th of 2024, he re-injures his left knee. He's got a torn meniscus tear requiring surgery. Unfortunately, later on in April of that year, he had Bell's palsy, which also affected his play. He did decide to play in the 2024 Olympics, but
which was a mistake.
Which I think everyone agrees now was a mistake, because he had limited playing time, ultimately only played 11 minutes for Team USA, and then he ended up missing the entire preseason of 2024, and then ultimately re-injured his left knee more recently. And I think this just highlights the issue that there's great pressure on athletes to continue to perform when they're injured. There's increased pressure on them to return to play even after they're injured. The
One of
pressure.
the things that the coaches ask, they say, "Are you injured or are you hurt?" See, because if you're injured, you can't play. But if you're hurt, you can play hurt. And that's one of the questions they ask: Are you injured or are you hurt? And,
And,
and most athletes say, "I'm hurt."
and most athletes say they're hurt because
Mhm.
they're professionals. They desire to really be out there and contribute to their team. The challenge is the pressure increases when there's more money associated with things. So if somebody's a superstar, if they're paying big bucks, if they've recently signed huge contracts, there's tremendous pressure for them to be in the game and, we'll say, play injured rather than hurt. And if you play injured, you increase the likelihood that you're going to have recurrence of the injury, and that recurrence is going to be worse. And the thing is that we all know this. If you injure an arm or a leg or a knee and you get a repair, the first time that you go in and have the surgery and so forth, it can go very well. But if you re-injure it,
Mhm.
then you have to go back into a previously injured knee that then's been repaired, that has scar tissue scarring, things related to the normal healing process, and you have to try and refix it again.
Mhm.
And like everything, whenever you go for a redo, it's more and more and more and more and more challenging. So the bottom line is, yes, they should sit Joel Embiid down for a long time. And following the repair and whatever surgery he requires on his knee, he really needs to have full and absolutely complete rehabilitation and support for that knee, and really has to be at a point of incredible recovery before he comes back. Otherwise, to me, he's just going to be at risk for injuring again. So that's my 5 cents, and we'll go back to you.
Nope, nope, nope. Stay right
Oh,
there. Okay,
okay.
stay right. Can I talk?
Yes, uh-huh.
Okay, so what I want to do real quick is I want to go over Joel Embiid to remaining contract. And here's what I want to say to you. Okay, Philly doesn't have a Joel Embiid problem. Philly has a management problem. And I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to prove it to you. Okay, so look, this year, the 24-25 season, Joel Embiid, he's 30 years old now. He's going to earn $51.4 million this year. He's no longer playing. Next year, he's going to be 31. He's going to get paid 55.2 million. The next year in 2026, 59.5 million, he'll be 32. At 33, he'll be making 64.3 million. And in 28-29 season, at age 34, Philadelphia is going to owe Joel Embiid $69 million. Now, I just said Philadelphia doesn't have a Joel Embiid problem. They have a management problem. I'm going to prove it to you. Look, the Philadelphia 76ers had the number one draft, and they drafted Markelle Fultz. Do you know who they passed over? Jason Tatum.
Ooh.
Jason Tatum is on track to be an MVP this year. Then they
Mhm.
drafted Ben Simmons, my absolute favorite. You know who they passed over for Ben Simmons?
Who did they pass over?
Jaylen Brown. Now, who are the
Ooh.
number one and number two stars for the Boston Celtics, which are the best team in the league, is
Even
Jason
I know
Tatum
that.
and Jaylen Brown. But it gets better. After that, they took Tookie Maxey, and you say, who? That's my point. Yeah, they drafted Tookie Maxey instead of Grant Williams. Grant Williams just scored 40 points the other night for OKC. Then they had Ime Udoka as their assistant coach, and they didn't promote him. Then they traded Al Horford for Danny Green. And who does Al Horford play for? He's with the Celtics too. So the best team in the NBA, three of their starters, they all should have been Philadelphia 76ers. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Al Horford. And Ime Udoka is one of the best young coaches in the NBA. So Philly doesn't have a Joel Embiid problem. Philly has a management problem.
Think you made a pretty strong case for that. My only other 2 cents is As a physician, I would be totally over all over the data analytics for players who have major injuries that require surgery, and playing, and how that ultimately impacts their playing time, their likelihood of re-injury, um, and really in the end, how long they're able to play. And things may vary depending upon the position, because we know big men, okay, they have a different level of wear and tear on their
That's right.
bodies,
That's right.
because they're so tall, so large,
Mm-hmm.
so big,
Mm-hmm.
compared to fat forwards and guards. And I don't even know if there's guards as
And
positions
and
anymore,
and I,
but
and I always say this when you're looking at the NBA draft and you've got a star big man and you got a star guard, always take the star guard over the star big man. I mean, if we can just go back, Troy and I used to kid. We used to talk about this guy. Because he looked like LeBron. We used to say he was LeBron James' daddy. Odom, I can't think of his name, but the Trailblazers took him number one, and the number two pick that year was Kevin Durant. You know, you always take the guard over the big man. I know big men can set you up, but like Lori is saying, they just don't last the pounding. Every now and then you get a freak like Shaq, who's 7 foot and 300 pounds and runs like a gazelle. Every or Akeem Olajuwon or Wilt Chamberlain or Bill Russell. Those are generational players, but they just don't come around very often.
once in
Usually
a generation.
right. Once what you end up getting is a Joel Embiid who is an MVP type player when he's healthy. He's just not healthy all the time, or God forbid, an Anthony Davis.
All right. Well, there we have it
All
on
righty,
Joel
gang.
Embiid.